Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bob Stoops app. I'm Brad McMullen, along with Hall of Fame football coach Bob Stoops, who joins us on the phone in Chicago. Good morning to you, Coach. It's Bedlam. This is a huge one. Oklahoma losing to Kansas last week, now on the road, still tied for first place, and it is going to be the last time they play as conference rivals, as, of course, Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. Oklahoma favored by 5.5 points. Coach, your thoughts on Bedlam?
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a game. I'm really, just anxious to see. Mike Gundy and their coaching staff and the team has done a great job of coming back from the early struggles of the year and have really looked excellent the last several weeks. They really, to me, anytime you got a run game like that they have with Ollie Gordon, that's a big deal, so I'm sure that'll be a big focus, for OU. And I'm anxious to see OU bounce back from a tough loss, just too many mistakes away from home at Kansas. And, just to bounce back and play a great game. So it'll be exciting.
Now you look,
you're saying the last, I'm trying to figure out how does Iowa and Iowa State, they continue their in-state rivalry, even though they're one's in the Big 12 and one's in the Big 10. So who knows? Maybe down the road this can come back to some degree.
I surely hope that OU and Oklahoma State can find a way to play. I think it's a great rivalry. I think it's a lot of fun. I know that Gundy has taken a lot of heat by saying it's not a rivalry anymore. I would say if you talk to the people here in Oklahoma, it is a rivalry. And I thought it was interesting that Oklahoma, when selecting captains, including your son, Drake, it was all players from the state of Oklahoma that will be representing the University of Oklahoma as captains in Bedlam.
Yeah, that's neat. They all, being in-state players, that makes a difference. And, bragging rights throughout the state with the fans and then, the players, it matters to them. So, it's a great, I compliment Brent and his staff. I like the idea of rotating captains from week to week. Gives everybody ownership and being leaders, and also I think they do a really good job on how they pick captains week to week and to represent the team.
And you mentioned Ollie Gordon, the talented running back for Oklahoma State, who has been a difference maker. It seems like it was 5 years ago, that South Alabama loss at home for the Cowboys. They are riding the Ollie Gordon train, 10 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards rushing in just 8 ball games. This guy's legit.
Yeah, absolutely. Geez, the last several games, he has really just taken off and could tell catching his rhythm, catching his stride, whatever you want to say. And then I didn't study him early in the season to see if they've, how they've manipulated or changed any of their blocking schemes, but you don't gain over 200 yards by yourself, so the line, and they must have been doing some good things to get them the space to give them the opportunities to make those runs.
We saw the missed tackling again show up in Kansas. We saw missed assignments show up in Kansas. We saw I hate to say it, the turnover bug hit us again in Kansas, and that led to a loss. What does OU need to do this week besides just cleaning up basic plays to win this Bedlam contest?
Yeah, the things that stand out to me are always, the turnovers were major, especially when one's for a touchdown and then if they score, kick it off to you and you give it right back to them inside the 20. Those are gonna get you beat always. But the big deal to me, not just the turnovers, I thought third and fourth down, we were not nearly as efficient as you need to be. And, so we've got to be able to, to execute on those possession downs, third downs and fourth downs, to give yourself opportunity to stay on the field and score.
Yeah, and look at Dylan Gabriel, 173 yards, but he only threw 12 passes, surprising a lot of people. I know the elements were not the best, not ideal elements. It was pouring down rain, a lot of wind. But you look on the other side of the ball, Kansas was able to throw the ball. They took the risk to stretch the field and stretch the defense. Do you expect the game plan to shift a little bit more to more of an even keel, more than one-sided running?
I would guess so. I mean, you're through the year that's been the case. So I would imagine it will be again. And you're talking about Dylan Gabriel, who's a very experienced player. So I would anticipate that. Yes.
All right. Prediction time, Coach. 6-2 OSU at home. It's a sellout, obviously, because Oklahoma is coming to town. OU favored by 5.5 points. How do you see the Sooners in this contest?
Come on, Brad. You don't even need to ask me on Oklahoma every week. I always pick Oklahoma. So I believe we'll play more like we have through the year and rise to the occasion of being there with the sellout crowd. Those are great moments to competitive moments, and I feel our guys will rise up to it.
I do too. I think that Oklahoma is going to come to play in a big time way this weekend. I love the Sooners on the road, getting revenge, and I know that a lot of people will be waiting to see if Danny Stutzman plays and some other guys that are injured. But the difference between this OU team and last year's OU team is they have a lot more depth. Not exactly where they want to be on the depth chart. That's why they're going to do more recruiting, but a lot more depth than they had just a year ago.
Yeah, definitely. They're just overall depth, strength, everything about them's been more positive, and I don't see it changing. And they are recruiting incredibly well too for this coming year. I just see we continue to pick up some great players, so that's exciting too.
That's correct. All right, so Oklahoma number 9 in the new college football playoff poll. Oklahoma State number 22. When you look at this poll, Coach, Sooner fans are going to point to the fact that Oklahoma beat Texas. They have the same record as Texas, and Texas beat Alabama, but Oklahoma is behind both Texas and Alabama. Your thoughts on that first?
Yeah, that's I get it. The bottom line, you can look at who got the best win. Well, we beat them, but Texas has beaten Alabama, which traditionally always up there, and then they look at who you lost to, and that's probably we get a little bit of a penalty for that. Although, again, I'm all, Kansas is a good football team, but so where they're ranked compared to where Texas is and Oklahoma, that's all going to work itself out. It doesn't really matter at this point. You just have to keep winning.
All right, Ohio State probably has looked the most consistent all year, beat some big teams. They were rewarded for it, being number 1 in the initial poll. Georgia, the back-to-back national champions, find themselves at number 2. Michigan, swirling controversy around sign stealing, in at number 3. Florida State 4, just on the outside looking in. Washington, Oregon, then Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma. Your thoughts initially on the top part of the poll with Ohio State at number 1?
Yeah, they've been strong, especially here as of late. And I don't know that Georgia's strength of schedule is what it normally is. So I don't have a problem with any of it right now, just because there's so much football to be played. But Ohio State and Georgia being up top, they deserve that. Michigan, Florida State, Washington, to me, are very similar teams. I've been incredibly impressed with Washington and how they're playing, and Florida State as well. Michigan and that whole sign stealing, that's going to be interesting. You look at their record the last 3 years when they're accused of doing all this sign stealing compared to the 3 years prior to that, it's quite different.
33-3. That's a big difference.
And compared to what it was ahead of that. And if I'm Ohio State getting beat by them the last 2 years, and they've known, I don't care what people say, that's a big deal when you know what the other team's doing. And I guarantee Ohio State's not real happy about it. And, as well as some other teams. I mean, that is blatant. There's a reason there's a rule in place for this. That's blatantly wrong. And I'm of the opinion they should be penalized for it. So we'll see what they do.
And you mentioned this. The coaches are outraged there in the Big Ten. They actually had a 90-minute phone conversation, according to ESPN, that went into great detail with their frustration with the NCAA and the conference in not acting fast enough. They're now asking the Big Ten commissioner to step in and punish Michigan right now. What are your thoughts on that, and how much
Why?
time is right?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, what do you have rules for if they're not going to be enforced? And if this is the Wild West and we can do whatever we want, that I don't understand it. As well as they've already been penalized for rules violations during the COVID recruiting period. So I don't understand how why they would not.
What do you think the punishment should be when you're talking about something that more or less is flat out cheating, which gives you a competitive advantage in a game?
I don't know all the facts, but if the facts line up and this was all true, then it needs to be a strong punishment. Yeah. What it would be, that wouldn't be for me to say, but it needs to be strong and emphatic, because otherwise, why have rules?
Right. My question is, if you play an ineligible player, right, they take away that win. Could this be something that they look over those 3 years and even into this year and say, hey, you had a competitive advantage because you were stealing signs and cheating, so therefore those wins shouldn't count. And if you have losses, then you're no longer in the college football playoff discussion.
Well, again, those would, to me, should be up for consideration.
All right, let's talk about the games this week other than Bedlam. You have Kansas State playing at Texas. That's number 23, Kansas State, at number 7, Texas. Texas favored by 4 points. But again, the big story out of Austin is a backup quarterback will be taking the reins of this team.
I got to go with Kansas State just because of how hot they've been playing. They've gone to Texas and have won before. And, with the backup quarterback playing, for Texas, I think that matters. And again, I just look at how hot Kansas State has been.
Yeah, I just think for some reason that Texas at home will find a way to get it done. They'll probably be a little bit more conservative with the new quarterback and depend a lot on that offensive line, which did well against Alabama. And they were able to rush the ball pretty well against everybody except Oklahoma. I think Texas will win a close one against Kansas State. The interesting one for me, though, you got Clemson. Dabo Swinney, expectation preseason that they would contend with Florida State for an ACC championship. They're going to be at home against Notre Dame, and they're an underdog at home by 3 points already with 4 losses on the 2023 campaign.
Yeah, I'm for what Dabo's standing up for about, everybody wants to. Anyway, I'm in Dabo's corner. He's right. He loves the game, loves working with his players, and you're gonna have a bump. You're gonna have a tough season here and there. I had one where we went 8-4 through the season, and that happens on occasion. It didn't happen much, and it hasn't happened to him much. So you can't let all those expectations, as he puts it, steal your joy of competing, playing the game, and working with the players every single day. But that all being said, they're having struggles this year. I'm a big believer in just Notre Dame, how they've been playing, and I believe Notre Dame will get it done.
I just think Notre Dame is a far and away better football team. I think Clemson's going to give everything they can for their coach because I think they love Dabo. And I think because of the last week, right, all this negative publicity, they're going to do everything they possibly can to win that game. Unfortunately, you are who you are. And they're just not a great football team. And you look at Notre Dame, how tested they were, playing Ohio State, playing so well against USC, and really kind of turning things around. I really believe in Marvin Freeman. I think he's a good dude. I think he's got the team zeroed in. And I think they just have better talent going into that contest.
Yeah, I agree. And some reason, whatever, the problems Clemson's having, I mean, they keep showing up, so it's not like it is a one game.
Yeah.
So, they're having those struggles. And Notre Dame, as you said, I just think they've been solid in these last many games, and I wouldn't see that stopping for them.
Yeah, I think Clemson's going to play really well in the first half, may even be leading at halftime. And I think that Notre Dame's just bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced in big games this year. And I like Notre Dame.
Exactly. And Notre Dame's one of those schools, they don't care where they go play. Yep. Bottom line, even though it'll be rocking and rolling in Clemson, they've been on the big stage a bunch.
Yep. All right, Texas A&M at Ole Miss. Texas A&M already with 3 losses on the season. The Rebels in the top 10 in the country. Rebels favored by 3 points at home.
Yeah, I like Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin and his group got it going on, and Jackson Dart, right? I believe is that
yes.
their back has played well. So, and whatever reason, I haven't seen a lot of A&M, but you have 3 losses, so they have their struggles. So I would see Ole Miss continuing to play well.
Yeah, I think A&M and Ole Miss will play close in the beginning, but I think that home crowd, I really like what Lane Kiffin is doing with the Rebels right now. I like the home team in this SEC matchup. All right, speaking of the SEC, Missouri, number 12 in the CFP, facing number 2 Georgia at Georgia. Missouri, a surprising 7-1 on the 2023 season, but they are a 15-point underdog in the hedges at Athens.
Yeah, I would. I'd like Georgia to win, but I think they're a good football team. So I see them, giving Georgia some problems, but Georgia will win. But I think I'd take Missouri with that many points.
Yeah, Missouri's just impressed me. The way they've played, the way they've been consistent. Again, I think Georgia's going to win the ball game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 14 points. But I like the 15 points, if you know what I mean. I think Missouri has played really well, and I think they'll be pumped up for that game. Speaking of another Tigers, LSU Tigers going to be traveling to Alabama. Last year, remember, big win for Brian Kelly and the Tigers when they beat Alabama. It gave them momentum. It gave them the Western Crown to go play in the SEC Championship, which they would later lose to Georgia. A rematch of that game, if you will, but this time it's in Tuscaloosa. And Alabama showed Tennessee in a rematch how they would look. And I just feel Alabama's going to do well in this game. Alabama's only favored, though, by 3 points.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is like one of those you say run from.
Yes.
But because, Alabama, you just early on, you're thinking, all right, they're going to struggle. But they figured it out here in the last many games.
Yeah.
And LSU, had their struggles early, and they're playing solid. But being that it's in Alabama, I'm going to go with Alabama on this to continue to make their improvements.
Yeah, and with all the cigars that were passed out at the Tennessee game and all the cigars that were passed out last year at the LSU game, I have a feeling if Nick Saban wins, somebody else will give him another cigar in that post game. I think they're going to be amped up. I really do think Alabama will find a way to win that game, and 3 points seems right about where it should be in that contest. All right, other game of interest, the USC Trojans trying to continue to get things back on track. That interesting game with Cal, when Cal went for 2 in the win, and USC found a way to win by 1 point, 50-49. Now the Trojans are going to be back at home where they're hosting undefeated Washington, and Washington is favored by 3 points on the road in Los Angeles.
Yeah, again, this isn't any personal feelings whatsoever, but I just talked a minute ago about the playoff rankings and how impressed I've been with Washington, and they beat in their win against Oregon. So I'm going to go with Washington to continue to really play well. I've just been really impressed with their play calling and overall play on both sides of the ball to not take them.
Yeah, when you look at how they've played the entire season, Washington's one of the top 4 teams. The last 2 weeks, they haven't looked impressive. They've struggled offensively. Penix could only throw 1 touchdown pass in that game against Arizona. But here's the thing, they found a way to win. And I think they're going to be dialed in because they're playing a big-time name in USC. They're going to be playing on the road. They're going to be playing the defending Heisman Trophy winner there in Caleb Williams. I just think this is the game that Washington's been waiting for. I don't want to say that they were looking ahead, but when you're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids out there, sometimes they do look ahead. That game is now. I love Washington on the road taking on USC.
Yeah, like I said, I've just been really impressed with them. And I've got to see them several times, and they play well.
All right, let's talk about the Kansas Jayhawks, who had that big win against Oklahoma, stormed the field, took down the goalpost, celebrating that big win for them. But now, just like that, they're on the road at Iowa State, a team also left for dead at the beginning of this season after losses to Iowa and others. Now Iowa State 5-3, 4-1 in the Big 12 Conference. Kansas 6-2 on the year. And the Jayhawks, despite that big win against Oklahoma at home, they find themselves as a 2.5-point underdog this week playing at Iowa State.
Yeah, boy, this is a tough one for me. And I got to be honest, I haven't seen a ton of Iowa State other than, with the OU game. And I'm just really impressed with KU and having just seen them. So I'm going to take Kansas to continue to play well here in this game.
Yeah, normally, and I'd say this, a team that has a big win, that has this emotional celebration, 3 days, they were saying that they were still talking about it at practice, that momentous, huge win that they had against Oklahoma. Sometimes you got to get your guard up because that next week is really, really important. But I agree with you, Coach. I just feel like this team is better than Iowa State. It's not a slam to Iowa State. I just think Kansas is really good.
Sometimes a big win like that, too, can boost their confidence.
Yep. Yeah.
And keep them, can spread the, keep the momentum with it.
Yeah, that's where I'm feeling. I just feel like that they were pushing for this moment. They wanted the attention. They got it. They found a way to win, which was still a surprise to me. 3 minutes left to go. OU intercepts that ball. I, like most OU fans, thought we're going to win this football game. But give Kansas credit. They found a way to win that game, and I think that momentum is going to carry over this week with a big road win for them against Iowa State.
Yeah, I don't – again, that's kind of how I see it.
All right, final two games we're going to talk about. Iowa is playing in Chicago at Wrigley Field. Coach, what are your thoughts on your Hawkeyes?
Yeah, I'm. The news about letting the coordinator Brian Ferentz go at the end of the year. I don't know how that helps at this point in the year, but in the end, I guess it just now everyone doesn't have to keep debating it or talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm always in Kirk Ferentz's corner. What a great coach, great man, and I'm going with my Hawkeyes. Of course, I just feel they're just too good on defense.
Yep.
And they win any kind of low scoring game. They find ways to win them, and believe they'll do that again. That they'll be, I think, excited to play in Wrigley Field. And, so I think all of it will line up well for them to win a close game like they usually do.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the atmosphere is going to be great. Remember, for videos anytime, just tap on our video link. For Hall of Fame football coach Bob Stoops, I'm Brad McMullen saying, go Sooners, win Bedlam.